Welcome to the Not So Obvious. If there's one thing that I hate is fictitious case making. However, I will enjoy a story or a case study. Recently, I was listening to a couple talking about a married man who didn't want to be married any longer to his younger wife because he was of retirement age and the fact that he wasn't earning enough money to cover the bill due to ageism. Moreover, he had been laid off from his long term job. Then later he was diagnosed with prostate cancer after a case of priapism secondary to the consumption of Viagra that sent him to the hospital. Purportedly, he was an ardent womanizer and a prolific gambler, but surprisingly, he was also mixed up in the ritual of zombieism. But while he was recuperating from his illness, he decided to rent one room in his house to a couple from his country. The reality is that the money would help him to pay the bills as well as augment his social security earnings. Furthermore, by then his wife had graduated from college and just started working. But one night his wife, having worked a double shift and very tired, came home to find him in bed complaining of pain. She gave him his pain meds and later offered him something to eat. However, he declined, saying he was cleaning out his body. Therefore, he didn't want anything to eat or drink. He went off to sleep in another room and his wife fell asleep quickly. However, about 6 a.m. the next morning, she was awakened by a loud knocking at the front door. Since she was skimpily dressed, she used a quilt to wrap her body. Then she hurried to the front door in order to find out what was happening. What was the urgency? Why someone was knocking at her doors like that so early in the morning? To her surprise, it was her neighbor who had just moved to the house next door a few months ago. The man looked at her dismally. Then he said, "There's a man hanging from your back porch, and I have already called the police." The woman ran upstairs to the room where her husband slept, but he wasn't in bed. She searched the remaining rooms, but he was not in the house. Then she went to the back porch where she found him hanging from a nylon cord, while below him stood a large tin container. She began crying and calling him by name, but he did not respond. She ran upstairs, where she began calling the police, 911, as well as her friends and relatives. Later, she got dressed to receive the people who were coming to revive him and investigate the incident. The police and 911 emergency workers arrived simultaneously, but he was already gone, according to the coroner who removed him from the noose. The wife cried her eyes out. However, there was nothing she could do to bring him back to life. Years later, someone who knew of the case told his wife that it was his twin brother's body that was hanging from the noose, not her husband. In fact, reportedly her husband was alive and well back in his own country. However, his wife found the stranger's explanation very hard to accept, as she didn't know that he had a twin brother and he never shared the news that he was a twin. Nevertheless, the strangers explained that her husband's twin brother was ailing for some time. Therefore, as he died, his body was transported to the back porch where he was dressed in one of her husband's suits and was subsequently placed in a noose while her husband disappeared from the house, quietly leaving her to grieve. What a calamity! What a story!